Hello, everyone. My name is Dmitry Frolov, and together with my colleague Vladimir Nadein, we curate the program Chronicles of the Algorithmic Age. This program is dedicated to those genuinely new forms of film that uh, basically came to existence solely because of computer technologies. Among them are desktop films, generative cinema, AI-based videos, Machinima, which is the use of video games or game engines to create a cinematic production, and many other things. These media phenomena have already got their niche in the space of experimental film and contemporary art, but more than that, they are increasingly influencing mainstream cinema.
Yeah, and we actually very happy to introduce our first online session, and we are eager to introduce you to Andrea Gatopoulos, a filmmaker from Italy, and his film Happy New Year, Jim. Thank you so much, Andrea, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting.
Yeah, and the film is about two gamers that play during the New Year Eve. And film actually had a blasting start in Cannes Film Festival in Directors Fortnight, which for us is also like was a really kind of unexpected and basically like a phenomenon in a way that Machinima went to such a privileged and prestigious film festival, having this like a gray zone of copyright and like a game, not even aesthetics, but like basically, yeah, like the film was born out of video game. And of course, it's not the only example. There's like a very prominent and a kind of important film, Needs Island, that was premiered in Nyon in Vision de Rail, and of course Total Refusal, that had their film in multiple times already in Locarno. But Cannes was kind of seemed to be, like unreachable place for Machinima. So big congrats for that, Andrea. Yeah, and yeah, we can maybe start with our first question.
Yeah, as far as we understood, Happy New Year, Jim is your first Machinima work, but you also made an in-game photography project, which is called Beat Reality in 2017. Is that correct? So
Yes.
It seems that you started using video games as an artistic tool from the very beginning of your artistic career. So we wonder what inspired you to do so.
Well, actually, I started doing cinema with Machinima because when I was 12, 13 years old, and I wanted to make films, that at that time we still didn't have cameras and phones. They came a couple of years later, the first ones, and they were like 144p. So it was really unusable. And at that time, I used to play games a lot. And I was a gamer by all means. And I used to record my games and then use editing softwares to make small. They were not really films. Let's say they were montage of game sequences. And then when we started playing seriously, and I became a pro gamer, we used to have what we called what was a sort of curriculum vitae for gamers that was called the frag movie. And the frag movie was an editing of all your best, all your best things that you did during your year of gaming. Mm-hmm. So every year we released our frag movie, and that was a moment of editing, and it was a moment of editing that implied the use of machinima techniques, that implied the use of VFX, of title design, because actually the aesthetic and the coolness of the frag movie and the beauty of it was part of its success, and then of your chances of getting into a big team when we played. So actually, I started making films with Machinima, and it goes a long way back since when I was almost a child.
Yeah, it reminds me of what you're saying, like the early day of Machinima, like so-called demo replays, when the players were showing off in a way with the recordings of their best skills, and this like a player called Doom God, like, or Doom Gods, multiple
Yes.
players, you know, that were very, very skillful. So this kind of, there is a legacy of
Yeah.
that, it seems.
Sure,
Yes,
yeah.
and I remember that me and my friend, who later became a friend also in real life, and his nickname was Humi, and me and him were particularly keen on beautiful editing in frag movies. And I remember that even if we were not the strongest, but our frag movies were kind of the best frag movies around. Because I always had this thing that I wanted to make cinema, and I had that kind of attitude, I guess, at that time. And they became quite popular as like beautiful examples of frag movie. And I'm so sorry that they got lost in time and they are nowhere to be found. And I've lost all my accounts, and that memory of those aesthetic, those times is completely obliviated.
Yeah, and it's relevant to many of early Machinima works as well. Most of them are lost, and it's quite hard to get access to them. There is this Internet Archive, which is a great source to research that. But yeah, and we also know that some enthusiasts use artificial intelligence technologies to upscale early works so that they are accessible to watch today and to screen in cinemas today. But yeah, maybe we can touch upon the artificial intelligence a little later.
Yeah, and I was wondering, so the structure of your film based on the dialogue of two avid gamers, I guess. So you mentioned that you used to play a lot when you were 12 or 13, but how do you play today, and how much time do you spend in games and virtual environments? And did you portray yourself in one of the characters?
No, not really. Like, I mean, when I was a gamer, I tended to skip some social events because of that. But the most important ones, never. I never skipped New Year's Eve or Christmas or this time. I was always been like a super social person, and I really needed reality. And I've always lived games as more like the relationship there is between a drug addict and its drug, more than as a real passion. And that's why I quit. And eventually I understood that it was either continuing gaming or making films. And I decided to make films. Um, uh, so no, it was not like a portrait of myself, but it was maybe some kind of expulsion of that anguish that I've always felt when I was playing games and I couldn't stop. And actually, it all happened in 2019. I was in Cyprus Film Festival screening one of my early shorts, and there I saw a work from Ismail Chandutis called Swatted. It is a beautiful film that also makes use of machinima.
Yeah.
And there I said, wow, I did that. This is the beginning of my cinema. I can do this too. And so the idea came to do something in that environment. And then I started watching Twitch a lot. And I was watching this Twitch streaming one day. I don't remember who was the streamer, but it was this guy that you couldn't see. It was not with the camera, so you could only see him playing. And he was telling his not also about his game, but also about his feelings. And he told us spectators. He was talking to another guy, and he told this guy, do you ever think what your life will be in 20 years? What you're gonna do? Do you have ambitions about that? And the other guy said, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know what our life will be when we will not play anymore. And especially, he said, I don't know how my life will be when I will look back, because I have the feeling that all these 7, 10 years that I have in this streaming career, I have absolutely zero memory of a single day of my life. And all these days just are just packed together in a sort of loop, oblivion loop. And what will I tell a child, or what will I tell a friend? about this year's I don't know. And it struck me very much that in like a random Twitch stream, I could hear such an existential problem, because this is a deep existential problem, and it stuck with me, and I decided to write a story about this. And the reason why I used Machinima is because actually uh, there is a sense of longing in this dialogue, and the fact that you don't see them makes this distance unbearable, between the two of them. And then you see New Year's Eve, and it makes it even more unbearable that they're so disconnected from their social life. So I think it was the perfect way of telling a story of like that, of longing for friendship and love.
Yeah, this is very interesting, and this slogan is really visible, and I believe it's mostly because of very nice dialogue, very nicely written dialogue, and there is a lot of psychology in your film that I believe resonates with a lot of viewers from or viewers of our generation who basically have grown up with the internet and digital technologies and video games. But what you mentioned this existential crisis, and I'm wondering, what do you think is the reason of that crisis? Do you think it's basically because of the impact the technologies have on our psyche, or
Yes,
and
absolutely, because actually technology is we have our relationship with the technology is a relationship of substitution. So every technology is called to substitute a human activity with a technological activity that is quicker. And technology does, in a broader sense, two things. It either shortens the time from question to insight. And this is a conversation that I had with Paul Sappho, which is a futurist at Stanford University. And he actually makes forecast for big companies of what the future will be. And he's paid to do that. Imagine the job. And what he said about this, it's either that you shorten the time for question to insight, or that you shorten the fatigue, you substitute fatigue with comfort. And all the technology and all progress that we've seen in the last 20 years has actually made this process of taking apart something beautiful and hard and start substituting with something less beautiful but more comfortable. And so this is why I say that technology is like, it's not only existential, it's the existential question of humankind. Because if we proceed down that line, I think there is no escape from transhumanism and from going to that point, the tipping point that I mentioned in the short film, where we will renounce, in a way, to something fundamental. And when we will do that unknowingly, because we will do that thinking that we need that extra comfort. And the more capitalism grows, the more we are asked to produce more. So the more we feel that stress, and the more we feel that stress, the more we need that comfort. And the more we need that comfort, the more we develop technology, and we substitute bigger and bigger and broader parts of us. So yes, it's deep. I think it's a deeply existential question that we're facing right now.
Yeah, and it also like Jim also like very anxious about this, from these hyperreal images that AI produces of like human non-existent faces. And it makes me think about, like these AI NPCs. I don't know if you've heard of them, like in Unreal Engine 5, for example, or this open world city. They already have this AI NPCs with whom you can kind of make have a very complicated and like sophisticated dialogue. But do you think there can be any benefits from this development? Maybe for, I don't know, like for even machinima production, I don't know, like, or just for our daily lives.
So the good thing about Machinima is that it warns us about a part of our brain which basically works our brain naturally humanizes everything. So when we see a drawing of a dog, we think of the dog. When we see a drawing of a human, we can bridge that gap and feel that we can compare that analysis, that drawing to that of a real human, and then elaborate on the real human. And that's why when we see an NPC, when we see a game, we bridge that gap and we think about something very, very deeply human. And that's why Happy New Year, Jim, even if you'd never see them in their face, but you only hear the voice, and when you look at the film and you look at those NPCs and then you look at those faces, you feel a real feeling. And that's actually the problem of Morten, that he says to Jim. He says, I've been having existential questions about life and God and the destiny of these people in a game, which is something that totally happens with me, but I think with anyone. And that tells you that it's a kind of an SOS if you think about it from the brain. It's a kind of a way of saying, listen, I'm looking at non-existing simulacra of humans, but I'm thinking about human feelings. And so if you think about it, it's an SOS. It's longing. It's totally a longing feeling for love and affection. And do we want to substitute all these human processes with the relationship with a machine? We're doing it, but we're not doing it because we want to. We're doing it because we need to be more productive, we need to be faster, and we need to keep up with the growth of capitalism. So actually, we're forced to do that. And you can see that in the labor market a lot, because if you cannot use a computer, you cannot work anymore. So technology and the evolution of technology is based on blackmailing. You either keep up or you're expelled from society. And you now in this epoch, you also start losing human rights, because if you don't work, you don't eat, you don't have a house, and we don't have a society where you can afford to sustain yourself with land, or you really need to buy, and you really need to pay. And so now technology today is really becoming like a proper blackmailing of everyone, and who doesn't keep up with AI in 10 years will not work. And that's a fact. There will be very few work positions that will not require it, and that means that we're actually this is some kind of existential dictatorship if you think about it. And it really bothers me very deeply, to be honest.
Yeah, and a big question is whether we are in the control of the situation, both in terms of the capitalism and the development of these technologies that and these things, as you put it, connected strongly with each other. But your film starts with and ends with the so-called blue screen of death, this glitch image, so to say, related to the moment when the operational system crashes, like Windows crashes. So I'm wondering whether you are optimistic or pessimistic in that sense, like whether the things can get changed towards something better, because when Jim yeah, spends time during the New Year Eve in this virtual environment with this kind of obsessive and anxious state of mind, and then we see this blue screen of death. It looks like a very doom, take on this subject. So, what do you think? Is there a place for optimism still?
Well, I imagine the end of the film like the start of the new year, but it doesn't start in the real life. It starts in the game. So you see the sun coming up and it's January 1st. And so that's the beginning of something. And that beginning of, I think we can agree that the society is changing, and that probably in 10, 15 years, we have a world that is completely different. I think we can agree on that based on what happened in the last 2 years, which was crazy in terms of technological advancement. What will happen? I don't know. I guess there's going to be a breaking point at some point, and I think also kind of close to that, because I think that people will start losing, as we were saying, they will start losing their ikigai, if to use a Japanese term. At some point, they will start losing sense, and I don't know how much pressure can be put on people from the growth of capitalism, and up to what pressure people can withstand. Because right now, I think that people are working 10 times faster and better than 30 years ago. And at the same time, they're twice, if not 4 times poorer than 10 years ago. And I'm thinking about affording basic things like a room or a house in a metropolis, which they have become quite crazy expensive. I don't know how this will explode, in what way it will explode. Will it explode by boycott? Will it explode by, in a way, a new forms of living, like, I don't know, new age 2.0, 3.0? I really don't know what's going to happen, because actually this is really a new dawn of humankind, and I think that AI is the biggest technology shift that we've had since I don't know, maybe the modern chicken, the invention of the modern chicken, which was the start of, like, capitalism in a way, because that was a chicken that was engineered to give you 1 egg per day, which is quite crazy if you think about chickens like 5,000 years ago. So I don't know. I just think that at some point we either change, radically change our brain structure and communication structures, or we will crack under this pressure. And what are people going to do at that time? Will they just go crazy, or will they get angry? Will we have neoluddism? I don't know, to be honest. What I know is that right now you are always in this blackmailing relationship with capitalism, because you also have your own ambitions, and they're so deeply linked to it, that maybe you want to make a movie, or you want to build a house, or you want to, and they're all connected to the capitalism so much that we are actually attached to, like our lifeline is attached to the vampire that is sucking our blood, you know. So we have a symbiotic relationship with it, and will this meet an end? I don't know. I wish I knew, because I would invest in the right stocks and then become a billionaire if I knew.
Yeah. No, I think your title actually very like convey this, like, Happy New Year, Jim, is already like this new dawn, in a way. At least
Yes.
what I felt, like welcome to hell in a way.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see how the short film has gotten so old in so quickly. Like right now, you watch that this person does not exist.com, and it's the stone age of generative adversarial networks. You now open Midjourney, and you have a much better representation and a much better working AI, and that was 2 years ago, because I actually finished like shooting and writing Jim in August 2021. So it's 2 years ago. It was the stone age of this, and now you look at the film, and then you think, wow, this is really old. And it got old so fast, and it's really incredible how fast it got old.
Yeah, and maybe then I can ask you about because Happy New Year, Jim is a part of the trilogy, and this is the first film of this trilogy, A Man and Machine. Can you maybe speak about like the second and the third projects in this trilogy, and how do you relate to this? Because the second chapter already been shown, so how you'd feel in terms of Stone Age in a way towards like second and third chapter.
Yes, Eschaton Ad, the second chapter, is an apocalyptic film that is interrupted by an ad. So actually, it deals more with artificial intelligence than with games. It's totally a film about AI and AI linked to the advertisement of a new era in a way. And I'd love to show it to you and to whoever wants to watch it. I think that next year it's going to be possible, definitely possible to watch it online. While the third film, A Stranger Quest, is a feature documentary that has just come out, and it is a movie about a map collector. So someone that dedicated his whole life, 30 years, to accumulating an archive of historical maps, which is the single most forgotten and obliterated technology in the whole world, maps. Because right now, nobody in the world uses paper maps anymore. And we've just obliterated them completely. And by doing that, we've obliterated a form of art, which is extraordinary. And it's not only beautiful, but it also, like, historically and technologically, it is a document that saves so much information and so much precious data of the past into a single work of art. So it's sometimes a single map tells more than 10 history books, and they're beautiful, elaborate objects, items that if someone put, I don't know, Urbano Monti's map in Louvre, like people would look at it like forever, like they look at Gioconda, I think. And in this film, the story is told from the perspective of the navigator of David, the protagonist. So it's a satellite navigator in his car, does this trip with him into his past and into the ghost of his past. And he cannot understand how he works as an old man and as a man of an old world, where you didn't have to justify in a economic frame every one of your gestures. And actually, the thing that this navigator doesn't understand is how can a human being dedicate his whole life to something useless and find the sense of his own quest into something useless, because this is actually what capitalism is allergic to, the useless and the unexplainable and the no profit part of human passion. And that is also what makes our life worth living. Sometimes there are things that are completely out of this logic, and people are unlearning, I think, this. And so the film is almost like my final take on the relationship between man and machine.
And you use some Second Life, right? Images,
Yes.
or like in the film.
Yes, because David, the protagonist, has built. He has this map collection, and he has built a museum in Second Life, which you all can visit. And it's been built in 2003, so 20 years ago, and it's still there, and he still keeps it up. And during the movie, actually, we fixed a part of it that was vandalized, and we built it again together with one of his friends that is more like is an expert in Second Life, and he was actually the owner of the biggest advertisement company inside Second Life at that time. And during this film, because somebody happened with the restrictions, and the bug caused people to like destroy part of his museum, and in the movie we built it back again. And they also speak about these digital landscapes, what will happen to them as place, will they be obliterated, how can they be saved, preserved for the future, to see how actually we came from early 3D to augmented reality, and how can this landscape have their own history in a way.
Yeah, and actually, Machinima is a wonderful tool to preserve, at least in the form of the moving image, to preserve these virtual spaces. Because yeah, it's obvious that at some point in the future, Second Life will cease to exist, and it won't be possible to access these spaces. So yeah, it's really great that we have such filmmakers as you. And maybe
and such people like you that are doing this amazing job of actually collecting and and curating and then divulgating all this material. That's a really, really powerful tool, I think, to have our own history of this stuff.
Thank you so much. I think we need to wrap up our conversation soon, but maybe just the final question. Could you please tell us a little about your project Novel Bug, which is an international workshop on Machinima, and which is very, I believe, very important as in the context of media literacy, which is so necessary in our age.
Yes, Nouvelle Vague is actually a word game between Nouvelle Vague and bug. Of course, it's very easy to understand, but the point of Nouvelle Vague is to actually crack the way filmmakers start working on their films and to teach them that it is always possible to make films, even if you don't have a budget, production, blah, blah, blah. Not only that, these limitations sometimes can give birth to the best ideas that you can have. And it's a workshop in which we use Machinima, AI, softwares, Google Maps, satellites, surveillance cameras, and we imagine works that can be done without leaving your desk. In a way that is, to me, very similar to crafting a vase or painting, using this sort of archive of the present that is being continually generated. And of course, they're experimental films most of the times, but sometimes they are also narrative, sometimes they're documentaries. We had one of them premiering in Doc Leipzig, for example, this year. We had another that yesterday played in Interfilm Berlin. So their films, they can speak about our reality, but they don't depend on actually capitalistic funding or opportunities to be born. They don't need the authorization of someone else to be born, in a way. And this comes to the copyright issue. To me, Machinima is legit because you're not reproducing an interactive experience. So you're not infringing a copyright, because that would mean that somebody can play your movie like in a literal interactive way, but they can't. So what you're doing is actually you're reproducing your own experience into the game, which is the exact same thing that if you film a street, or if you film a supermarket, or if you film a public space, somebody built it, of course. Somebody made the sidewalk, somebody made the wall, but should you ask for permission to each and every one of the workers who did that? I think it's just foolish. Of course, if you copy the game, that's copyright infringement. But if you make short films which are not profitable, and even if Jim made 40 festivals, I didn't profit at all from it. I just lost money. So I don't think I need to owe anyone anything. To be honest, I think it's also good advertisement for everything that is in the movie. So, and it's free advertisement. So I think that's pretty fair use. It falls under the fair use.
Yeah, it's actually a very simple and beautiful explanation, I found, because this is like the question we're constantly being asked, and we also asking filmmakers and scholars about the copyright issues, and I think you put it very beautifully. And maybe one more small question: you're already preparing the third edition of Nouvelle Vague, so maybe our audience, or like, are you planning to make more?
It's the second actually, and it's going to take place from 5th to 15th December. So we're almost starting.
Yeah.
And yeah, for now 34 filmmakers are coming to do it, and really, really looking forward to see what they will do. And actually, the tutors of the workshop are also Total Refusal crew, and Ismail Chanduti is the director of Swatted that I mentioned before. So actually, it's us that try to guide and to show stuff, because that's what we do. We just show stuff to the guys, and then we try to help them give our opinions on what they're doing. And in 10 days, they're supposed to write, direct, and edit at least a rough cut of a film. And yeah, that's very funny, to be honest.
Yeah, then good luck on the second edition, and hopefully for people who will watch our conversation, they will probably apply maybe for the third one if it will happen at some point.
I hope so. Thank you so much for giving space to this.
Yeah, and yeah, we also hope that our viewers will enjoy your wonderful film, and thank you for it again.
Thank you
And
for watching.
Thank you for filling our the first page of our Chronicles, of the algorithm page.
That's just an honor for me, really.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.